So, without further ado, I would like to bring up to the stage M1, Stick, and Umi, who is moderating this conversation. Let's go!
Good evening, Brooklyn. We came here, so let me do that again. We sound like we was in Long Island. Good evening, Brooklyn. It is my distinct pleasure, privilege to be here at this moment. I want to first introduce myself. My name is Umi. I've been lucky enough to tag along with my comrades for the last 25 years. And I've learned so much. The conversation that we want to attempt to have here tonight is reminiscent of what we do in our spaces when no one's there. Right? We want to give you guys a moment to catch some insight into what we feel that the community needs to hear. And a lot of this is sparked based on the brilliance of, first of all, 25 years ago, an album came out called Let's Get Free. I don't know if this is a great thing to admit, but some of the messages are more relevant today than they may have been then. And so this is a moment we should conversate about, right? And bigger than that, I want to talk about new things because we move forward, and the brothers have produced this incredible offering, a wonderful book that I can't wait for you guys to read, entitled Music, Message, and Movement. And it gives you a chance to really see the insight and the backs that we stood on to be able to get where we are today. And so, first and foremost, I want to just give my brothers a chance to introduce themselves, and then we will properly begin this.
Well, since Umi began with me, I will begin. First of all, I want to say how thankful I am to be in your presence today, and I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for taking your time to be here and be a part of this conversation, which to me is tremendous and important. So first of all, thank you. My name is Matulu Oluvala, also known as M1, M de la Gente Compende, as my homie Don D has donned me. And I'm one half of their prez, and I thank you for being here. Yeah.
I'm Stick, and I'm not from Brooklyn, but I lived here 10 years, and it was some of the most powerful times of my life. So it's good to be kind of home. You know what I mean? So much so that the back doors of the brick is on Ashland side was my crib. Right? So it's full circle. Yeah, so super excited to be here. We got a lot of new things coming down the pipeline in our creative field. A new book, Music, Message, Movement, a new album, and I ain't gonna fight with that. But we've been working in multiple things collectively and individually in tech and Afro tech and so many different levels. You know what I mean? So we're excited to build with y'all.
Yeah, a lot of music. And because we've coined this particular conversation, music, message, and movement, let's start by speaking about the book itself. I want to kind of give insight to it. But in the book, you break down the revolutionary just definition as it relates to music itself. What defines revolutionary music, and thought it was brilliant as it relates to truth, risk, impact, timelessness, and freedom. I thought that was spot on. Can you expand on this and why these 5 elements are so essential? Can we start there?
For sure. So first of all, the book is an audio book, by the way. So me and my partner are reading it, and then the print will be coming forward. But in what he's referring to is kind of like five qualities that we try to identify when we look at what we call revolutionary music. You know, whether it's Nina Simone, Fela Kuti, Tupac, you know what I mean? And various other ways, you know, that rebelliousness shows up in our art, right? And what we found, and I'm sure many scholars, many greater minds can find other qualities, but what we landed on was these 5. So, truth. Number 1, shit gotta be real. What are we dealing with the truth? What's happening? You know, in the world, in ourselves, and just authenticity, right? And being grounded in that, in our art, having that kind of value system. Like, you know, it's important for us to inform ourselves on what is accurate, you know, to the best of our ability. You know what I'm saying? And you see that in all these different examples of artists bringing the truth, whether it was Billie Holiday and her era talking about black bodies swinging on trees. And they tried to ban that, but it was the truth, right? And so forth, right? Then the second quality is risk, right? You know, what we call revolutionary artists know the risk involved and do it anyway. You know what I'm saying? Because saying what need to be said, somebody got to do it. You know, so and it's a service, it's a choice that these different artists have made to sacrifice. You know, when Fela Kuti said he was going to expose Nigerian colonialism in his work, that was real smoke. You know what I mean? It wasn't just music. You know, it wasn't just a performance. You know, say like Childish Gambino's "This Is America" was a moment, but it wasn't a movement. You know what I'm saying? So the risk is a part of it, you know, and it's about risk management and making choices, right? Then there was impact, right? You know, revolutionary music is all about impact, not just doing it to do it, not just doing it because it's popular, but how does it impact the times, the culture, the kids, each other, you know what I mean? In different kind of ways. And then truth, risk, impact, timelessness, and timeliness, which is the same thing, really, right? If we tapped in, it's like you see the cycles in time, right? But in our time, what time is it? You know, and being able to, you know, be on the pulse of that, and that is a job, that is a service, that is a practice of ear to the street, listening to the people in our times, what's important in our times, what's coming down the pipe, you know, and finally, freedom. You know, freedom of speech, as they say, right? And fighting for that right, and pushing that line, and holding that line. You know, these are elements, whatever different countries, like for example in Palestine, there's a whole political revolutionary movement of people talking about their right to freedom. You know what I mean? And that's what, when we see that, we recognize that's not just beats and rhymes. Like that's a fight for freedom, using music as a weapon, as Fela would say. So when you see, when you look at music in popular culture or local or any genre, right, or in really any art form, not even just music, there's gonna be an element of truth and authenticity. There's gonna be some risk involved in saying what need to be said, you know. It's gonna be impactful, right? It's going to touch lives and change perspectives, right? It's going to be timely and timeless, right? And it ultimately is going to add on to our consciousness towards developing what freedom can look like through our imagination and then in real time.
I feel that. And that's a mantra call to action, like slogan that you brought forth. It's so dope. And as we talk about different mantras and moving forward, can you share some of your own moments in your personal career, where you saw firsthand how your own music could be a call to action?
You know, and thank you, Omi, for that question. It's funny because I traveled around the world with this dude forever, and he acting like these formal questions.
Mr. Omi.
I gotta say, I'm witnessing it in real time. You know, what's so crazy is 25 years later, I met this guy in Tallahassee, Florida. And when I met him, he was the same analytic mind, you know, who had studied the Black Panther platform, the 10 points of the Black Panther platform, and was not only so inspired by it that we weren't like charged with reliving it. You know, I remember literally recreating it, almost as if we were Huey Newton and Bobby Seale. Like, as if that didn't happen and we were like, what the fuck is going on in this hood today? Let's break it down. And what's so crazy is that's what I just saw. So I think the brilliance of who Stick is and the moments that you say that you're asking me that I witnessed is these are the things. Like, because who in a time had a checklist of how your music could be impactful? Or how your music could gauge where it could really be. I needed it. When I heard Brand Nubian and Gangstar, when I was listening to all these things, they didn't bring the checklist. You know, and not saying that they needed to, but I gotta say, for the future MC, the future artist, who is an artivist, it is important that we lay down some sort of kind of ground rules, because all of it can't fly. So we have to measure impact. We got to measure risk. We got to measure, are you talking about freedom? Are we talking about freedom?
Yeah.
And because if it ain't, and it's cool, we can do all the rest. But we got to pull for those of us who are here for what we're here for, we got to pull the rest of that shit off the table. So we measure it based on the shit that matters. And that's the shit you just laid out, bro. That shit is crazy. You know, I wish inside our crews, and for many years, you have no idea how many fellow artists in hip hop who I wanted to implement a political action element inside their own crews. I'm talking not just like something like Public Enemy. I'm talking about Busta Rhymes. I'm talking about Mobb Deep. People, Nas, people who really understood that their shit was impacting in a way, but they wanted to make sure it was seen a way. And they felt like we, just like Kanye thought, that we had a better measure on how do you do that. And like we didn't get it. It didn't come from us, but what came to us was able to be outlined by people like Stick, and I'm thankful for being his partner for 25. So I'm witnessing it. This is one of the moments.
Right there. I wanted to add to that answer too about how not just our music, but an example of music being impactful in the real world in a way, right? So many years in New York, some of y'all may know there was these concerts for Black artists. How many of y'all ever been to one of the Black artist concerts? You know what I mean? My man Lumumba in the building, big part of that, organizing and making that happen. Now, so check it, right? By us doing Let's Get Free and the type of music we was doing, when we connected with the organization that was putting that forth was the Malcolm X grassroots movement, right? And the way, what I want to say is that artists, music don't exist in a vacuum. You know what I mean? And us being able to collaborate and be comrades with MXG and Uhuru Movement and different organizations who do the everyday work to organize these different solutions, that's key, you know, to being impactful, right? Because the music is powerful, but it's you know, when you see the army and they play the drums and you get the morale up, but you need the troops on the ground doing the work too. So working in tangent with organizations on the ground is also important of making impact. And with the Black August concerts, if you don't know, that was used to raise awareness and raise funds for political prisoners that's still behind enemy lines in the U.S. And so many of those brothers and sisters that are our OGs were able to feel cared about. Their cases was promoted and more people learned about their situations, you know what I mean? And some of them cats have came home over these 25 years. Brother Sundiata Kohli and many others. Fred Hampton Jr., you know? So we don't try to make it, the movement ain't about the artists, you know what I mean? We are in service of the movement. So when the organizers are putting in work, we want to be like, we got some soundtrack, we got some energy, we're gonna put that to the poetry of what y'all put in the newspaper, you know what I mean? And we work as a team, you know, teamwork make the dream work.
I know you gotta ask questions. I know you gotta ask questions. But I do have to say this. What Stick's saying is imperative. You know, we are cultural workers at service for the movement. We always have been, and not rappers. Like never wanted it that at all. So when you talk about cultural workers and what that actually means, that shit comes in you know, there is an order to what this means. Like, so when we talk about being at service to the movement, you know, it is hard for me now to articulate how important it is that we have a movement to be at service to. Because, you know, when we speak of the strength of who we are, a lot of times we wax way nostalgic, but we don't have these examples now. And for many years, to be honest, in line of what you've heard as Dead Prez music, I've been demoralized at our inability to free political prisoners, to win campaigns, to fight back police terror, to do these things. Like, I want to be free, for real. It's not like, you know, it's not an exercise in, you know, how can we come together and be oppressed. It's like, fuck these motherfuckers, for real. You know, so without like Malcolm X grassroots movement, we wouldn't have nothing to say. And with the thing, nothing to say. We talking the talk, but it wouldn't be really about nothing. And I just got to say thank y'all. 1998, I was in Cuba, and this is not about hip hop at all. We were at service, man. We was in Alomar, illegally. You know, allegedly. Talk to the Center for Constitutional Rights about that. And I just got to say thank you for having a movement that we could be at service to. Again, it's hard to articulate when I think, and in my mind, this art is made for this reason. And today, the music and the culture that we have is so disattached from anything. So, I just gotta say thank you. And thank all of our organizers and artists and all that.
Shout out to Mumba, MSG, just so much love. In that same spirit, you always, I've heard you guys a number of times speak on revolutionary music as strictly like way more than just protest music. You know, you speak on it as like it's progress music. You know, like what does that exactly mean? Progress music. Like tell me. Tell us.
Like the contrast of protest and progress. Like, well, we could look at it like this. Protest is what you're against, and progress is what you're for. You know what I mean? And you need to know both, right? You know thyself, know thy enemy. That's Art of War, Sun Tzu. So, but I think that's a great question because it points to the nuance and the spectrum of what we mean by revolutionary music, right? Like, you ain't gotta be the Panthers to make music that is progressive. You know what I mean? It's artists, you find your lane, you get in your lane. Bob Marley is a good example of one of the sweetest revolutionary messages. You know, One Love was what he was known for, but we know his fire in his catalog. You know what I mean? But he had a way of keeping love as the force, you know, in terms of what he was trying to communicate to push forward. So, Immortal Technique might have immortal technique, you know what I mean? Like, he gonna cut your head off, right? And that's gonna serve his purpose too, right? So we wanna embrace the spectrum of because we hold people, you know what I mean? We don't wanna just burn down Babylon, we wanna build up our own, you know, what we want. So yeah, you know, that when we make that distinction of protest music, which might speak to some issue that we're rallying against, there's also needs to be plenty room for the world we want to see. You know what I mean? Sometimes you hear in hip hop, so-called progressive hip hop, the whole conversation is about what you don't like in the mainstream hip hop, right? You know what I'm saying? So it's like we hear whatever goofy shit is they, you know, on the radio, and then you talking about the goofy shit on the radio, you know, and everything else is what we want to talk about. So even if it's just being able to have presence and be grateful, right, for what we do got. That is a positive thing, you know what I'm saying? Don't mean we don't got things to fight for, but gratitude is a part of where we want to get. So that's revolutionary too.
I'm gonna speak to it. Peace, Mario. I want to speak to this a little bit, just because there's so much at stake right now, y'all, and my partner's think is so right. A lot of times I'm able to be reined in because we do talk about like how much, like I say, like fuck the police, but it ain't really about them. You know, it's really what he is saying is real. And what are we for? Yes. You know, and I really would like to collect ourselves around that. Like, what are we really standing for? You know. To me, this is the most important conversation to be had at a time when there's, you know, it's crisis. Like, clearly crisis, even amongst the ruling class, who's gonna lead that? You know, like you're literally seeing a coup. Elon is pulling a coup on Trump as we speak, you know, just for ruling class power. It's fun to watch, but it's not our ball game. You know, it's not our ball game. You know, what's important is we collectivize ourselves now around what are we for? What are we standing for? What will take us past what we've seen before, where we don't have the same conversations again? And I don't mind it as long as we go forward. I don't have any distaste in my mouth around having ideological struggle. So we come somewhere. But the problem is we have to arrive somewhere, and you know, if y'all believe it's like in the Democratic Party or something, or you know, between the Republican Party, some sort of thing. I'm interested in debating that. You know, I want to know in the real world, seeing, pardon me, and if there's any kids here, the shit show that we have going on in America today. If we can have another conversation, I'm with that. You know, and so I just want to say, an urge with, you know, some sort of immediacy that we have conversations. You know, we can do it casually and shit. We don't have it, you know, I don't know how y'all feeling, but I know for me, you know, it's now, you know. So to lay it out in list form and even priority form would be cool for me to have that conversation with you. And so, pardon me if I'm taking this time personally to ask for that in this room, but I don't think I hear that being asked for in a world where people are taking all our rights away. Right? You know? So I want to ask for that and say that. You know?
I'll give a case in point too, right? Because I went some years ago, maybe around 2010, I was in a space of feeling like, you know, we had Let's Get Free, we had Turn Up the Radio, 1, 2, 3, right? We worked with the Outlaws, you know, and the Marleys and you name it, you know, world touring, Cuba, Africa, all over with our music and talking about the issues that we all still know still exist, right? And I was feeling, as I guess it's natural as an artist to sometimes feel like, man, am I beating a dead horse? You know what I mean? Or is it redundant? Is it whatever? And sometimes I would be like, well, shit, how many booty shake songs is it? You know?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, we could get a few more of this progressive music. But I also was at a point where some of the, I guess, the feedback from our career of music, you know, the game will shape you. It'll tell you, oh, this is what you do. This is what you are, right? And we talk about freedom, right? We always want to, as artists, as human beings, we want to define ourselves, right? And in order to do that, sometimes you got to stretch yourself. You know, you got to be willing to risk, right? And so for me, I know that what powers what we do is inspiration. Like, I gotta be inspired, I gotta be feeling the shit, I gotta, you know, feel the urgency. And at that time, health and well-being was the crisis and the conversation most strong on my heart, you know what I mean? And so rather than be like, let me just do whatever, the brand, whatever, you know, that kind of shit, I'm like, my brand is be true, you know? So out of that space, I created something called Fit Hop, which to me is a supplement for warriors, right? You know, outside of maybe the direct politics conversations that are important that we need to have. When we go to the gym, you know, when we keeping our physical tempo sharp and whatnot, we need music that supports that, right? And a lot of times we listening to the hard shit because it got the edge and it push you, but the little seeds of negativity and the just fuckery in the music, you don't really be wanting to hear that when you're trying to grow.
Right.
But you want something strong and solid, right? So I saw an opportunity as an artist to create that then, you know, or my humble attempt to make something that's, you know, strong enough for the street, but wholesome enough for the family. You know what I mean? And so my album, the Workout and Workout 2 is just a humble example of trying to fill the voids, be the change we want to see, and also keep inspired, you know, to keep making authentic shit happen. Yeah.
Solid, super solid, super solid. Speaking of Fit Hop and put into perspective this whole idea of, it sounds like, you know, this idea of understanding ownership I want to talk real quick about that. That's something that my entire career, have been blessed enough to be around the right people to understand that. So what's the difference as it relates to a successful artist and then an artist who owns their own movement, right? Like, in just in terms of how y'all have done it in this world, your own personal experience of doing it. What's the big difference in both of your opinions?
Say that again. Between a successful artist and who?
And an artist that owns their own movement.
Their own movement?
Their own movement.
I'll start quickly. It's three things to me: legacy, equity, and integrity. You know, success is defined by many different metrics in the capitalist system, right? And whatever your metrics is, that's science. We can define it by those metrics. But if the metrics for success is legacy, equity, and integrity, then we can also measure that, right? So in that case, we rich. You know what I'm saying?
I want to add on to what Trick is saying, and because, again, like, that's my area like. I agree 100% as I'm thinking about what that means. When I think about that legacy, I think of, history will absolve me. I think about, in the end, what can be said, because in these times, we may be seen as the scourge, as the terror. In this time, we may get painted by their propagandists as all of these things. Maybe it will be long after, and I don't want this to be this way, but I just got to say, in the time when, like, you are living in like this colonial mentality, then it may be the soldier like, the Peter Tosh, or even the Fela Kuti, who long after is celebrated, and then maybe they never got equity, but they always had the integrity, and so I just got to say that, to it, to artists, we have to not mind sacrificing for now, knowing that the seeds we plant, because I got to say, 25 years ago, making Let's Get Free, we did think, one, this could be the last time we can say anything to our people. So this is what we will say. And if that's what we have to say, then let's say it with all that we mean. And knowing that many years later it can mean something. And I'm hoping that artists today can take that kind of sacrifice for the future as well. Foregoing, the $1 billion mentality. It ain't nothing to matter with. Matter of fact, it is something to matter with being a billionaire. It is. It is. Actually, in capitalism, if there are billionaires, then there's so many people suffering. There are so many people suffering. I just got to unite with that. So, yes, anyway, thank you.
Okay, it's powerful, super powerful. And we're talking about, give it up.
And legacy too, because on some MC shit, the word legacy start with leg, right? So it's just what you stood on.
Bars.
Well, I was going to ask another question, but you said legacy. Real quick, I want to talk about Legacy NYC, Gifted BK, and some of the ventures that you had your hands in as it relates to New York City. And the cannabis edge. Talk to real quickly us about what's going on right now in the front lines of the cannabis world. How does that intersect with work that you have previously done, and why it's important?
Shout out to Danny Castro, shout out to Lyricist Now.
Yeah.
One day the whole world will smoke herb, and niggas won't get took to jail for hanging on the curb, and that's when we want freedom. And I just gotta say, the war on drugs did a doozy, and has done a doozy on our community, creating prison industrial complex, political prisoners from here to the wazoo, and still an unbalanced, completely unbalanced look at who and how we are to go forward. Like what our community really looks like when it's the Omni, 1 million niggas inside. And so I hope that reference falls on y'all goodie mom. I hope it does. I hope it does. Yeah. So when we talk about cannabis, we're talking about continuing the fight against this war on drugs. Like, and I know this sounds crazy, but for many years inside our community and in the Black liberation movement, like we shun cannabis because it could be the gateway for the police to kick the door in and be like, yo, y'all niggas is in. Well, we really just organizing for freedom. So it really was a liability for us to talk about it in that way. But there is a way that we can leverage their so-called greed around the cannabis plant, which is a new cotton according to capitalism, right? It is 100%. Look at all the states that have legalized. None of them did it for any moral reason at all. They did it for the dollar, for the greed. But at the end of the day, we can leverage that. We can leverage that. We can leverage that conversation. And at the end of the day, the same way we can be a revolutionary custodian, we can be a revolutionary cultivar. It can happen, as Mario Stravinsky right here. Because we can plant the seed with sacred intention. We can also make sure it gets to the communities that it needs to get to. We can make sure that when each sale, it goes to promote or support organizations that we can do it. We can, can't we? We can. That's not even a new thing. You know what I'm saying? That's not a new thing. So anyway, I'm gonna get off that. And thank you for asking that.
And I think the segue there is another. We're in a space where it's safe to promote community. And I'll speak on it real quickly. Legacy and Give the BK were cultural destinations for the community. We started these things to actually not just push the edge on what has been taken from another industry that we built, which is this cannabis shit. The only reason why they want it like it, they want it because of us. Right. And it's personal to me because 30 years we did this. So Legacy NYC speaks to the legacy activists that was actually involved in this when they was getting 20 years for a dime bag. You know what I'm saying? And so that's personal, very personal, and it's important to bring up.
Yeah, I want to say the freedom that when you see Fela Kuti with the huge split.
Man.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the ability to resist against colonialism in a way that said we're not with the regime, we're not with the bullshit. I make this akin to when I see Ibrahim Traore make detergent factories or begin to create ways for us to have agriculture that does for self in Africa in the same ground that could grow the cannabis that we smoke today. So I just want to say it's part and parcel to one of our same conversations. If we have it that way. There is a way to have it without just talking about being high for high sake. Yeah.
I do want to give the community a chance to have their voice be heard too. We have set up a couple mics over here for y'all to ask a couple questions.
There's no microphone here. There's one right here.
We'll make it happen. We'll put one right here. But before I do that, I want to just ask one last question as it relates to today. Who are the voices today as it relates to music that's pushing the envelope on this idea of just progress music? You want to give some flowers and show some love to some of the guys that you listening to or that you are promoting, pushing forward?
You want to start this? Music message movement?
Yeah. It depends on the rubric, right? Like, for example, I like this guy named La Russell a lot, right? And if you're not familiar with La Russell, he's a ball of energy, you know.
Oh, they're familiar.
Good, shit, I don't know. But it came on my radar, just the genuineness of his music and the innovation and how transparent he's been with his process. and building his own community. Started shit in his backyard. You pay what you wanna bless him with when you see what he about, what he brings, and what he's doing. And in that transparent process, he's built. He's independent, moving like a major force. And his music is not, let's say, super militant or some shit like that, but it's positive, you know, in its own way. It's empowering, you know what I mean? But most importantly, the example that he's laying out about artists owning their own process, right, is revolutionary. You know what I mean? That's just like I learned this when we were studying, writing a book. I learned, you know, big fan of James Brown, but I didn't know how much activism James Brown was doing. That, you know, you hear the records, but you don't know behind the scenes. And, you know, like the food stamp program that he tried to bring to the White House around investing in people who are quote unquote on food stamps, taking a percentage of the food stamp and putting it in the stock market on their behalf, right? He had like innovative ideas, and you know, and I'm sure there's probably some criticism somewhere in there with capitalism, but the point was he was trying to be innovative and give back to his community in creative ways. And what gave him the umph to do that? The power of his music. You know what I mean? Like he was leveraging the fact that he had that cool factor to actually be a political force. A person now that's similar to that is somebody like Killer Mike. You know what I mean? You know, and the ways he's trying to innovate in business and banking and even in, you know, political, who he aligns with in certain ways, just leveraging the force of what he's doing. So those are some of the people that I respect, and I don't always want to point out the obvious. Everybody's saying the same thing, you know what I mean? But people who are finding their own way to contribute in unique and innovative ways.
Dope. You wanna add on?
I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna be very. I'm gonna hold the bar as high as I possibly can, and that's okay. You know, that's okay. I think it's okay when this conversation around music is not something that it's not easy for me to come up with a handful of names. When we talk about this, I would not. I'm talking about people who made me think the way, you know, KRS urged me forward, who taught me the way Public Enemy did. I'm talking about community, like real community people who like commune with the 5%ers, like, you know, the Flavor Unit, Latifah and them, like him, Shabazz and all of them did. Like when I talk about like, you know, the science that was in the music that fed me, I don't see it anymore. I don't see that anymore. And, you know, props to people like La Russell. But I'm gonna hold it high, y'all, because we can. I'm gonna say we need to create the culture that creates the artists that are then giving us what needs to be heard. I think there's an agenda that's clear here. I think our agenda is independence. I think we need to clearly look for artists who are saying these words in those songs. If they're not saying it, and I'm not nothing against anybody who's positive or well-meaning, but I'm a fucking revolutionary until I die. Until I die. So, that fight, I'm looking for that. I'm looking for that in the youth. I'm looking for the youth to say, fuck the police. If you ain't got the courage to even say that, what are we talking about here? Now, I'm also hoping that you can compose some sentences about like how to respect our sisters, how to organize, you know, clear goals in our community. I'm hoping that we can find that stuff in the music. Until then, I ain't gonna big up nobody. I'm gonna wait for you to tell me. I'm gonna wait for you to tell me. And thank you for that
I'm gonna big I'm gonna say RIP the neighborhood there, because I got got super inspired from him, and I'm gonna also take this moment to open the floor up to anybody that wants to ask a question. Because there isn't a mic there, we have a time. Sure.
I'll take this one and that one right there.
Now you got a mic.
Now you got a mic. So we'll just pass the mic around, and I'm sorry we don't have a whole lot of time, but we can get through a few questions. And
By the way, we're about to have a crazy show after this. Y'all ready for that?
After Citizens United eviscerated the last vestiges of our democracy, and you have the fomenting rise of the 99% against the 1% with the, you see more eat the rich, more let's get the oligarchs, you see that gathering in society. What's the way that we can go from everyone on their phone saying, yeah, this is great, everyone, engaged, you'll have a conversation, but there's no movement, there's no actual engagement to actually castigate, and catalyze real change. How do we actually get beyond just the screen to changing the world for the better? How do we actually unite as a people against the oppressors in all different forms? How do we do that? I know if we had the answer, we'd be doing it and living in it. But you guys had such prescience. You see, your music still, yeah, came out a week ago talking about now. It's true, and that's what you mentioned: timelessness, timeliness. It's all one. So, the floor, anything that we could do as a people to be better and to actually get change.
I'm going to say this, and I'll start by saying definitely I don't have all of the answers or even any of them. But I do think what I was able to hear just from your own question. Yeah, that's what it was. Before. What I was able to hear just from your own question is, man, we need to put the phone down.
Yeah.
Wow, what would a put the phone down day be?
Yes.
And this is not something I'm gonna go ahead and give that away as free game. I definitely have copyrighted that, but more so it's about if we put our phone down, what conversations would we have?
Right.
And I do think they would be more meaningful. We would be able to talk about impacting in more than just likes. Or GoFundMes or things that we can do in a very passive way. Right. I think we would talk about I think we got to get back to talking to each other, talking to each other. If we meet in a room without a phone, and we say what is the most important thing to us, easily an agenda can come up, easily. And with ChatGPT, man, lay that shit out. We gonna have all.
Yeah. To add,
Go ahead. I'm being facetious. Go ahead.
no, that's real. I want to add on a perspective, right? How we frame shit, right? Create some opportunities just in the framing of things, right? So what if, how you could go to school, right? You go to university for political science, right? And somebody called it that. And they said, this is political science. That is the lane, that is the chamber. And you learn these things, and then you have this understanding, and then you look at the world a certain way, blah, 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 right? But what if we said that making change, just as an experiment, right, is more an art?
Yes.
Right?
How do we do it?
Yes.
Society. How do you
It's not necessarily a science yet, right? First, it gotta be an art, because art. When I say let's do some science, every shit is technical and all that shit. But when we say let's do some art, right? We just try shit.
Yes.
Right? Feel free, try some shit, right? Whatever. Anything that you think can make a fucking difference, try that shit.
Right.
Right? It's bound to help, right? That's how I see it, right? Just be busy doing the shit you think. Whatever it is. Right, wrong, good, bad. I mean, well, not bad, but you know what I'm saying. But the point is, by doing, right? By doing, we get feedback.
Right.
Right? Not by just philosophizing. By doing, we get some feedback. And if we approach it like it's art, it ain't real, you know what I mean? It's art. Like, see what you come up with. And then out of all of our artistic contribution, we can start seeing some science, some principles in there of shit that's working, and then we can duplicate, replicate, and chat GPT that shit.
I just want to say thank you for your question. I do think there is like a serious call to action that should be had. I do think, and I'm going to urge like the people who do feel this way right here in this room, and I know the organizers in this room, you know.
Well, Tesla is on Washington. It's tomorrow, so come out and protest Tesla.
There you go.
Tomorrow.
There you go. There's plenty of ideas in here, so again, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Michelle, thank you. Sylvester with Black Panther Self-Preservation Society. You mentioned timeliness and your music is that, like in spades. Y'all got it. I'm so glad y'all created it. Something that you did with your music that I appreciate is you put me onto books. I started reading Sun Tzu because of you. I started reading the Book of Five Rings because of y'all. I just picked up your book today. I was trying to get it from Nebo back at home. She said you got to draw some copies, so please do so I can buy some more. But even Midnight from Sister Soldier, I grabbed the book because of y'all.
Yes!
So thank you for the knowledge y'all put through your music that some folk didn't get into hip hop the same way, but they were picking up books and over. My question. What are y'all reading now that we should go pick up and go ahead and crack up on
Book G, you want Book G answer? That's my nickname in the crew, Book G. When we on tour, I got a bag of books and
You got more books than clothes, you know what I'm saying?
I got a bar of these fly clothes and shit, but wow, hey, don't judge me, but I'm gonna tell you something that I'm reading, and I'm fucking enjoying it. Right? It's called The Mustard Seed: The Revolutionary Teachings of Jesus. Right? And I'm not trying to convert you to no shit. But it's important to read perspectives.
Yes.
It's important to. And I'm inspired by certain ideas, you know, of what does love look like in action. You know what I mean? The radical spiritual aspect of love, right? And I'm just trying to grow as a man in my own practice. And I've been learning to look at the gurus of time and what was those timeless ancient messages. You know what I mean? And really take the whatever biases I might have, you know what I mean? And be open-minded and see what new insights you can get as you grow and as you live. So that's a book that I got with me. And it's been powerful, inspiring songs and all kinds of shit like that.
I love it.
Yeah.
I can say I'm a big fan of biographies. And so for me, Ta-Nehisi Coates has been somebody who's been leading a thought process. I like measuring what Brother Coates has been going through in the world based off kind of what my lens has seen. We don't see the world exactly the same light. I loved Between the World and Me, and it definitely was able to show me where now his new his new book, The Message, has landed, which he's able to talk about his travels through places like Selma and Palestine and the rest, which are places that I frequent. You know what I mean? I think the Edmund Pettus Bridge crossing is something that me and Stick and Umi know very well, as Umi from Alabama. And so when we talk about like the things that he's experiencing in that book, The Message, and what that means for us, it's helping me gather. And it's helping. I hope you read The Message from Ta-Nehisi Coates, because it helps us think, well, what are we going to do about it? And if we have books that tell us that, That's dope. I read, you know, the American Family by Santi Holly about the Shakurs, and that was really cool too. Again, I'm a fan of biographies and autobiographies. So if you have one that you can recommend, please send it my way.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Look, real quick, I want to add a book to that. Yeah, I gotta say this. My brother wrote a book. Shit is incredible. Y'all gotta get it. The 5 Principles. It's dope to know somebody that that got a lot to add on, and to see how they channel it. You know what I mean? And how they choose to present it. And so I just love his voice, and as he takes you through his own ideal versions of just getting in tune with your own self, but the way he speaks to you and kind of like inspires you to do it, this shit is profound.
Yes.
And then the second one I want to talk about is our other brother, Tariq Trotter, who is maybe the go to this shit right now, Black Thought.
The upcycle self.
The upcycle self. I know Black Thought for, I mean, they introduced me to him, so I know who Tariq is. And I didn't know none of this shit about him. Oh my God, it's such a heavy book, and it's so personal to know that, especially if you love his music and you probably love him through what he's presented. It's something that you should read. It's so motivating as it relates for you to get off your own shit. Like you ain't experienced nothing. Like go ahead, brush yourself off and keep going. Because you ain't experienced half of what that guy did, and I don't want to hear it. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to those 2 reads as it relates to things that's inspiring and can push you forward as well. You know what I'm saying?
And if you haven't ever heard of this book called Walking Barefoot on Broken Glass, it was written by this guy. Yeah. I ain't lying. Black Allegories. He wrote a compilation of allegories called Walking Barefoot on Broken Glass, and has yet to come to the world. But look out for this author as he humbly talks to you about all the other books that are in the world. So,
we got more questions. We gotta make it like
quick. I'll be quick.
Answers, because we got some people waiting.
All right, true. I'll be quick. Pardon me. I'm sorry for being late.
Cool, what's up, y'all? I'm Jonathan. Super, number one, appreciative to be in the space with y'all. I'm a high school teacher, so I have the luxury of centering what I want to center, at least in my space. And I actually was inspired to center y'all today in inspiration of seeing y'all today in my classroom. A practice that was actually thrown to me by my high school teacher, who's actually in attendance today. So shout out to her. And so when I had my students do a rhetorical analysis of your song and what messages y'all are portraying and how y'all utilize it, some students quickly got to some of the things y'all were saying about like some of the messages and things are much more prevalent today, and they speak to it and they quickly arrive to like it's important or that's happening because the systems that be and et cetera, et cetera. And some other students were like, well, what y'all been doing? Like, how is it the same thing? 25 years, that's a long time. They think I'm an old man and all these things. And so I got to pull up to a handful of 17-year-olds with a response. So I asked y'all, like, what's that answer? Some of them, they know it's like all these, prevailing forces. Some of them are like, what y'all been doing? And I don't know, I'm just curious what y'all would have to say to that.
What we've been doing, man, I gotta say the counterinsurgency has been fierce. When we talk about undermining our ability to see that path forward, to fund our revolution, a lot of that has, laid in that path. I gotta say, but notwithstanding the fact that we're still not free, there's been much work done. Again, when I speak to the Black August, concerts and what happened in that movement, that went on for many, many years. There was so many places that we impacted, from South Africa to Cuba and more. And I can talk about it and reminisce. A lot of times we are more self-critical because we have not yet reached those ultimate goals. But what have we been doing? Planting seeds. What have we been doing? plotting, planning, strategizing, reformulating what this counterinsurgency has laid on us, which has been pretty heavy. I think we have to talk about it in the correct terms, to talk about exactly where the analogy of where our people are versus our attempt to win or be victorious. But there have been victories we can count, and we just not free yet. That's all I can say to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Real quickly, I'll give an analogy. There's his name is not coming to me right now, but there's this boxer. I think his name is like Bill Crowley or something like that, right? But the significance of Bill Crowley, we put that in quotes, is he has a record of about 80 fights, right? All losses. You know what I mean? Like he is that guy. If he's fighting, the other corner is like, at least we get one. And it was interesting when I was learning about this cat, because it made me think like, okay, 80 times in a row, you have lost. Most people would be like, boxing might not be for you, buddy. But his tenacity is champion level. You know what I mean? Even though he ain't won no fight yet, right? The fact that he has not given up is a victory. You know what I mean? How many of us have that type of spirit, right? Even in loss, right? So I would say to your students, we have not given up. That's what we've been doing. You know? We keep showing up. Even if we get our ass whooped, even if we get our ass whooped, you will not run us off this block. Right? If you gonna bully, you gonna be the bully, you gonna have to fight me every day and beat me up every day until you realize you will never break my spirit. You know what I mean? And so we've been earning respect, you know, earning our progress by our mistakes and our choices, and that is progress too. Yeah.
Peace. I'm Brother Chef. I'm a veteran of the original Black Panther Party right here in New York. My question is for y'all and also for the audience. Okay, the question is, in terms of our still captive political prisoners, even those who have been released,